Urgent soulmate alert, they can't pretend anymore, their heart is pulling them back to you. My beloved child, listen carefully, because this message has reached you at a moment when your heart may be asking questions that your eyes cannot answer. There has been a movement in the energy of this connection that you may not yet be able to see, but deep within yourself, you have already felt it. Something has changed. Something has shifted. The person you have been thinking about, the person whose name still carries a strange weight inside your heart, is no longer able to pretend that they feel nothing. They may have tried to act distant. They may have convinced themselves that silence was easier. They may have told themselves that walking away was the right decision. They may have surrounded themselves with distractions, responsibilities, other people, work, entertainment, or anything else that could keep them from sitting alone with their own thoughts. But my beloved child, there comes a moment when distraction stops working. There comes a moment when the heart becomes louder than the excuses. And that moment may be arriving now. You have wondered whether they still remember you. You have wondered whether they ever miss you. You have wondered whether the memories between you meant as much to them as they meant to you. You have wondered whether their silence was rejection, fear, confusion, pride, or simply the end of a chapter. But this message is not asking you to chase them. It is not asking you to beg for attention. It is not asking you to lower your standards or abandon your peace just to make another person stay. Instead, this is a message about realization. It is about the moment when someone finally understands what they had in front of them. It is about the moment when distance teaches what closeness once made easy to ignore. My beloved child, sometimes people recognize your value only after they experience your absence. When you were always available, they may have assumed that you would remain there. When you gave understanding, they may have taken it for granted. When you forgave, they may have mistaken your kindness for weakness. When you stayed patient, they may have believed they had unlimited time. But life has a way of revealing the truth through separation. When your energy became quieter, when your presence became less available, when you stopped explaining yourself, something inside them began to change. They started noticing the silence. They started noticing that you were no longer reaching out in the same way. They started remembering the conversations they once ignored. They started replaying moments they thought were insignificant. They began remembering your voice, your smile, your patience, your presence, the way you cared, and the way you made them feel seen. And now they may be confronting a difficult truth: replacing your presence is not as easy as they once imagined. My beloved child, do not be surprised if this person appears conflicted. Their heart may be pulling in one direction while their fear pulls in another. They may want to come closer, yet hesitate. They may want to speak, yet remain silent. They may type a message and delete it. They may look at your profile and then close the screen. They may think about contacting you late at night when their defenses are lower. They may wonder whether you would even respond. They may ask themselves whether too much time has passed. They may fear that you have moved on. And perhaps that fear is exactly what has forced them to look honestly at what they feel. You see, my beloved child, when someone believes you will always be waiting, they can postpone decisions. But when they begin to believe they could truly lose access to your life, the illusion of unlimited time disappears. Suddenly the question becomes urgent. Suddenly the memories become stronger. Suddenly the heart begins demanding answers. They may have tried to convince themselves that what they felt was temporary. They may have told themselves that they were simply lonely. They may have said they were only remembering because they were bored. But there is a difference between a passing thought and a recurring emotional pull. A passing thought comes and goes. A recurring emotional pull keeps returning no matter how hard someone tries to suppress it. And that is what this message is highlighting. Their heart keeps returning to you. They can distract themselves for a few hours, perhaps even a few days, but then something reminds them of you. A song. A place. A date. A familiar phrase. A scent. A photograph. A conversation with someone else. A quiet moment before sleep. And suddenly your memory appears again. My beloved child, this is why you must understand something important. Silence does not always mean absence of feeling. Sometimes silence means someone does not know how to confront what they feel. That does not excuse poor behavior, and it does not mean you should wait indefinitely. But it can explain why a person can appear detached while privately struggling with emotions they have not resolved. Perhaps they were afraid of vulnerability. Perhaps they were afraid of rejection. Perhaps they were afraid that if they admitted how much they cared, they would lose control. Perhaps their pride became stronger than their courage. Perhaps circumstances separated you. Perhaps timing was wrong. Perhaps they needed to grow before they could understand what the connection meant. Whatever the reason, your role now is not to force the outcome. Your role is to remain grounded. Your role is to protect your peace. Your role is to remember who you are. My beloved child, you have spent enough time wondering whether you were enough. You have spent enough nights questioning what you could have done differently. You have replayed conversations and searched for hidden meanings. You have wondered whether you should have said more, waited longer, reached out first, apologized, or changed yourself. But hear this clearly, you do not have to become someone else to be worthy of genuine love. The right connection does not require you to abandon your identity. Real love should not demand that you constantly prove your value. You are not valuable because someone chooses you. You are valuable before anyone chooses you. You are worthy before anyone recognizes your worth. And perhaps the greatest transformation happening now is not only inside them. It is happening inside you. You are learning to stop chasing validation. You are learning to distinguish love from attachment. You are learning that patience does not mean tolerating disrespect. You are learning that forgiveness does not require forgetting your boundaries. You are learning that hope can exist without desperation. And this new version of you is exactly what changes the dynamic. My beloved child, the person who once believed they had the power to determine your emotional state may now be realizing that you have become stronger. You may not react the way you once did. You may not send the message you once would have sent. You may not explain every feeling. You may not rush to rescue the connection. And this quiet strength can be deeply noticeable. When someone becomes accustomed to receiving your attention, your silence can become a mirror. It forces them to see what they were receiving. It forces them to ask what they contributed. It forces them to consider whether they misunderstood your patience. And perhaps they are now asking themselves a question they avoided for a long time: what if I lost someone who genuinely loved me? My beloved child, that question can change everything. Because once a person understands that they may have lost something authentic, regret can begin to surface. They may remember the moments when you were there for them while they were emotionally unavailable. They may remember times you offered support without asking for anything in return. They may remember how you believed in them when they were struggling to believe in themselves. They may remember the way you listened. They may remember the way you noticed details other people ignored. They may remember the small acts of kindness they once considered ordinary. And now those ordinary moments may feel extraordinary. Distance has a strange way of changing perspective. When someone is close to you, they can become accustomed to your presence. When you are gone, they notice the empty space. The chair feels different. The phone feels quieter. The day feels slightly different. The emotional atmosphere changes. And sometimes it is only through that absence that someone understands the depth of what they had. My beloved child, if this resonates with your situation, do not immediately assume that every sign means a guaranteed reunion. Instead, observe actions. Let reality speak. If they return, let them return with honesty. If they communicate, listen carefully. If they apologize, notice whether their behavior supports their words. If they say they have changed, give time the opportunity to reveal whether that change is real. You do not need to rush because someone suddenly realizes your value. You are allowed to move slowly. You are allowed to protect your heart. You are allowed to ask questions. You are allowed to require clarity. Love should not be built on confusion forever. My beloved child, there is a difference between someone coming back because they are lonely and someone coming back because they are ready to love differently. Those two things may look similar at first, but time reveals the difference. A lonely person may return when they miss your attention and disappear when their discomfort fades. A person who has genuinely grown will return with accountability, consistency, and a willingness to understand what happened. They will not only say, "I miss you." They will also ask, "How did my actions make you feel?" They will not only say, "I want you back." They will also demonstrate why the relationship can be healthier this time. They will not only talk about feelings. They will talk about responsibility. And my beloved child, you deserve that level of maturity. Perhaps this person is currently wrestling with exactly these questions. Perhaps they know that returning without changing would only recreate the same pain. Perhaps they are thinking about what they would say if they contacted you. Perhaps they are afraid you will reject them. Perhaps they are afraid you will ask why they disappeared. Perhaps they know that an apology is necessary. Perhaps they have realized that pride cost them precious time. The heart can be stubborn, but truth eventually becomes louder. And when truth becomes louder, pretending becomes exhausting. That is why this title carries such urgency. They cannot pretend anymore. They may have been able to convince others. They may even have convinced themselves temporarily. But they cannot permanently silence their own heart. My beloved child, you may have noticed unusual emotional waves recently. Perhaps you suddenly think about them after not thinking about them for hours. Perhaps you dream about conversations that never happened. Perhaps you feel a strange urge to check your phone. Perhaps you find yourself remembering a specific moment unexpectedly. These experiences can happen naturally when someone remains emotionally significant to you. Do not let them control your behavior. Let them simply remind you that your heart is processing something meaningful. You do not need to turn every feeling into an action. Sometimes the strongest action is stillness. Sometimes the most powerful response is allowing another person to reveal themselves. You have already done enough explaining. Now let their actions speak. My beloved child, there is something else you need to hear. You are not being punished because the relationship has taken time. You are not forgotten because someone has been silent. Your life is not on hold because another person has not made a decision. Your future is bigger than one connection. Your identity is bigger than one person's opinion. Your destiny is bigger than one relationship. If this person is meant to return in a healthy and honest way, you will not need to destroy yourself to make it happen. And if life ultimately leads you somewhere else, that does not mean your love was wasted. Every genuine experience can teach you something about yourself. Every heartbreak can reveal a boundary. Every disappointment can deepen wisdom. Every ending can prepare you for a healthier beginning. But right now, my beloved child, the energy of realization is strong. The person connected to this story may be realizing that they underestimated your emotional importance. They may be realizing that not everyone offers the same kind of loyalty. They may be realizing that attention is easy to find but genuine understanding is rare. They may be realizing that chemistry is not the same as emotional safety. They may be realizing that a familiar connection cannot always be recreated with someone new. And these realizations can create a powerful desire to return. Yet remember, desire is the beginning, not the proof. Let consistency become the proof. My beloved child, imagine for a moment that you receive the message you have secretly hoped for. Your phone lights up. Their name appears. Your heart pauses. You read the words once, then again. Maybe they say they have been thinking about you. Maybe they admit that they handled things badly. Maybe they say they miss you. Maybe they finally express what they were too afraid to say before. What will you do? Before that moment arrives, decide who you want to be when it arrives. Do not allow surprise to erase your boundaries. Do not let excitement make decisions that wisdom should make. You can be compassionate without becoming careless. You can forgive without immediately returning to the same pattern. You can hear someone out without promising anything. You can appreciate their honesty while still taking time to decide whether their actions deserve another opportunity. My beloved child, this is emotional power. Emotional power is not manipulation. It is not making someone jealous. It is not pretending you do not care. Emotional power is knowing that you can care deeply and still choose wisely. It is knowing that love does not require self-abandonment. It is knowing that your peace is not a bargaining chip. It is knowing that you do not have to chase someone to prove that the connection matters. If they truly want to rebuild, they can participate in the rebuilding. You do not have to carry the entire relationship on your shoulders. And perhaps this is one of the greatest lessons this connection has brought into your life. You were never supposed to do all the emotional work alone. My beloved child, maybe they are finally beginning to understand that. Maybe they are looking back and seeing the imbalance. Maybe they recognize that you reached out more. Maybe they recognize that you tried to communicate while they withdrew. Maybe they recognize that your patience gave them more chances than they deserved. And perhaps regret is becoming a teacher. Regret is painful, but sometimes it is the doorway to accountability. A person who genuinely learns from regret does not simply feel bad. They change their behavior. They stop repeating the same mistakes. They become more honest. They become more intentional. They stop expecting others to read their minds. They learn to communicate. They become willing to have difficult conversations. And if this person is truly moving toward you again, look for those signs. Look for maturity, not just emotion. Look for action, not just promises. Look for consistency, not just intensity. My beloved child, intensity can feel like destiny, but consistency is what creates safety. Someone can miss you intensely and still be incapable of loving you properly. Someone can have strong feelings and still need personal growth. Someone can want you and still not be ready for you. This is why you must not confuse desire with readiness. Let the person demonstrate readiness. Let them show that they understand what they lost and why. Let them show that they have learned. And while they are doing that, continue living your life. Continue growing. Continue building. Continue smiling. Continue becoming the person you were always meant to become. Do not sit beside the door waiting for someone to knock. Build your house. Fill it with peace. Fill it with purpose. Fill it with joy. If they knock, you can decide whether to open the door. But do not stop living because you are waiting for a knock. My beloved child, there is a powerful shift that happens when you stop asking, "When will they come back?" and begin asking, "What kind of love do I deserve?" That question changes your entire perspective. You stop measuring your worth by their behavior. You stop checking every notification. You stop analyzing every online appearance. You stop interpreting every coincidence. You become grounded. And from that grounded place, you can recognize what is real. If they come back, you will not be desperate. You will be discerning. If they apologize, you will listen. If they explain, you will evaluate. If they change, you will observe. If they remain inconsistent, you will protect yourself. This is not bitterness. This is wisdom. My beloved child, perhaps they once believed that you would always be emotionally available. Perhaps they thought you would wait. Perhaps they assumed you could be contacted whenever they wanted comfort. But something has changed. You have begun to understand that your heart is precious. You have begun to understand that access to your life is earned through mutual respect. And that realization inside you may be creating a new reality around this connection. You are no longer chasing. You are no longer begging. You are no longer trying to convince someone to see what you offer. And when you stop trying to convince, people are forced to decide whether they can see it for themselves. Perhaps they are seeing it now. My beloved child, they may be comparing experiences. They may be meeting people who do not understand them the way you did. They may be discovering that certain qualities they overlooked in you are exactly the qualities they now miss. They may be realizing that your patience was not ordinary. Your loyalty was not guaranteed. Your emotional presence was not replaceable. Your kindness was not something everyone offers. And this realization may be uncomfortable because it requires them to admit that they were wrong. Pride does not like being wrong. But love sometimes demands humility. If they truly care, they will eventually have to choose humility over pride. They will have to choose honesty over appearance. They will have to choose courage over fear. And that choice is theirs. You cannot make it for them. My beloved child, you may be wondering whether you should reach out first. This message is not telling you to chase. If you genuinely have something healthy and respectful to say, you can make your own choice. But do not send a message simply because anxiety is demanding reassurance. Do not reach out because you fear being forgotten. Do not reach out because you want to force an answer. Let your actions come from peace, not panic. If silence is currently giving you clarity, allow the silence to continue. Sometimes silence creates the space in which truth can finally emerge. And perhaps their heart is speaking louder because your voice is no longer constantly filling the space. My beloved child, the person who is being pulled back toward you may be fighting an internal battle between memory and fear. Memory says, go back. Fear says, what if it fails again? Memory says, they understood me. Pride says, do not admit you were wrong. Love says, tell the truth. Fear says, protect yourself. Co.